The Roswell incident revisited, including a new link in the legend, the claim that some of this century's greatest inventions came not from the recesses of our brains, but from the remains of that alleged alien spaceship.
During the Cold War era, Corso says, there was great government concern that the Russians would gain access to the alien materials. Or worse, the aliens would use their superior technology to invade Earth.
Well, when I went in with a sergeant, and he picked up one corner of the tarp, and there's this body floating in some sort of liquid.
A body?
Yeah, a body. A complete body, not the head only. Complete body.
What kind of a body?
It was like that thing there.
You're serious?
Yeah, simple face, not much to it. Little holes in the eyes. It looked different, and it was small.
It was dead?
Dead. It was throwing some sort of liquid.
According to Corso, an ordinary filing cabinet contains the extraordinary artifacts of the Roswell crash. A piece of super strong metallic cloth. Corso contends it may have protected the alien pilots in their spacecraft. A tube that appears to shoot a searing red light. Corso thinks it might be a surgical instrument or a weapon. An alien-made headband that, according to his military reports, might have been used to transmit thoughts or control the alien craft. An imprinted set of miniaturized circuits, perhaps a prefabricated microcircuit. A flexible wire that might have transmitted light through its interior. And a lens that could allow anyone to see in the dark, supposedly taken from the eye of an alien being. To better understand the puzzling contents of the filing cabinet, Corso claims to immerse himself in classified government documents reporting on alien technology supposedly found at Roswell. According to the reports that Corso claims to have read, some of the world's foremost scientists, men like Wernher von Braun and J. Robert Oppenheimer, have access to the Roswell crash site. Corso says that Lieutenant General Trudeau greenlights him to assemble his own A-list team.
You will put on that team anybody that you want. Engineers, scientists, even I told the Germans. Told them I'll take a couple of Germans too, in addition to the U.S. scientists.
Much that is undone. There are great ideas undiscovered, breakthroughs available to those who can remove one of truth's protective layers.
Corso says he never mentioned his close encounter with alien bodies when he was on General MacArthur's staff in the Korean War, or when he was military advisor to President Eisenhower, or even when he was a commander of a nuclear missile battalion in Germany during the Cold War.
You commanded nuclear warheads.
I had atomic warheads. You know, this was not trivial stuff.
You're a colonel in the U.S. Army with access to the most secure secrets of the United States government.
I had all the clearances above top secret. I had the satellite clearance, eyes only at the White House. I had the crypto clearances. I had all those clearances one time or other.
And you believe in flying saucers?
I have to believe it.
In the whole Roswell saga, Colonel Corso holds a particularly important position.
You know, also in 2005, you accused the President George Bush at the time of plotting an intergalactic war.
According to my next guest, the truth is out there, actually up there, with our neighbor to the north, Canada. A former Canadian government official is warning we may be on the verge of intergalactic war, saying, quote, the Bush administration has finally agreed to let the military build a forward base on the moon, which will put them in a better position to keep track of the comings and goings of visitors from space, and to shoot at them if they so decide, end quote. Paul Hellyer is a former Minister of Defense and Deputy Prime Minister of the country of Canada. He joins us now from Toronto. Mr. Hellyer, thanks a lot for coming on.
Not at all. It's a pleasure.
Now, you were the Minister of Defense of Canada when you occupied that position, I believe, under Prime Minister Lester Pearson. Did you come across any classified information that suggested UFOs were real?
No, not really. We got regular reports that showed that some of them were, in fact, unidentified. Some of the sightings could not be explained as natural phenomenon, but nothing more than that.
Well, as you know, there's been this debate for years over whether or not they are real. Most people don't think they are real, or most people at least are hesitant to say they believe they're real in public. What convinced you that they do in fact exist?
Well, for the last 2 or 3 years, I've been looking at the evidence and assessing it much as, I guess, a judge would, and trying to determine who was telling the truth and who wasn't. And I finally concluded, especially after reading a book called The Day After Roswell, written by Colonel Philip Corso, that unidentified flying objects are in fact real as the airplanes flying over your head, and that there has been a monumental cover-up for more than half a century. This is after, you know, looking at a lot of evidence and trying to discern who was telling the truth and who wasn't, and I have concluded unequivocally that the people who claim that they have either seen UFOs or have seen classified documents about UFOs or have seen wreckage from the crash at Roswell on or about July the 4th of 1947 are the ones who are telling the truth. And consequently, I'm basing my, my policy considerations on that.
Where did you come across this information that the Bush administration is building a forward base on the moon? And why would they do that? And why would they keep it from the public?
Well, to answer your second question first, I don't know. That is the reason I'm raising the question.
Right. Well, how do you that's an awfully specific claim. I haven't read it in the New York Times. Doesn't mean it's not true. Doesn't mean you're wrong. But I'm interested to know why you think that.
Well, because this was forecast in Colonel Corso's book. They were wanting to build a base on the moon as far back as 1964. And General Arthur Trudeau, same name as one of my bosses, was very determined to build a forward base on the moon and prepared all of the specifications necessary for it and the blueprints and so on.
Well, what is it? Pardon me, I don't mean to interrupt you, but doesn't this make sense? I mean, if in fact there are extraterrestrials and they're buzzing our planet, why wouldn't we want to take steps to defend ourselves from them should they turn hostile?
Well, I think the critical question is whether or not they're hostile. You see, when the crash first occurred, General Nathan Twining
in Roswell
later became, after that crash occurred, he declared that they were enemy alien. Now, there's no evidence that I have seen that would really convince me that they are in fact, you know, enemy. And what I would like to know is whether that classification of enemy aliens still exists or whether it doesn't, and if it exists, what the evidence is on which the United States government bases its conclusion. I think that's tremendously important.
I think that's an entirely fair question. Now, finally, you laid out these views in September of this year at a speech at the University of Toronto, and according to the news report I have of the speech, your address, quote, ended with a standing ovation. And that implies, I think, that your views are commonplace in Canada. They're a minority view here, a distinct minority view. Do you think most Canadians believe that there is a forward base under construction on the moon and that aliens are buzzing the Earth?
No, absolutely not. Most of them are skeptics. Most of them haven't spent much time researching the subject, and so I think the average here would be very similar to the average American.
And I wanted to ask you about that. I think, I have a quote here.